The Wentz wait is over. Philly Sports Jabronis. I'm Joe Dara with Jamie Toman, Mike Greger, and Carlos Slade.
Hey, what's up, ladies?
Carson Wentz is coming back. We are back at the London Grill in Philadelphia. And, we're basically going to spend some time talking about what we think is in store for the Eagles this week with the return of Carson Wentz. And it seems, to me, medical issues notwithstanding, that it's kind of, I was thinking about this today, it's kind of funny how storylines can kind of just develop. And I'm not going to spend too much time here with my monologue, but if you guys recall last season, after Wentz went down and as the Eagles progressed, shortly into the playoffs and winning playoff games, so on and so forth, Nick Foles taking the helm, and the backstory that he had kind of had somewhat been of a fan favorite before he was traded away, or just not re-signed. I can't remember at the top of my head right now, but anyhow, I recall personally thinking this is like a nuclear bomb for Carson Wentz's situation where, in Philadelphia, the backup quarterback is kind of always the most appreciated person in the world, it seems like.
That's anywhere.
And, I guess, to a certain extent, it could be anywhere. Except for Green Bay. But I remember thinking to myself, and not just to myself, but on the podcast and just generally, that, if Nick Foles, before he actually went and won himself a Super Bowl, I remember thinking that if this actually happens, what the heck is going to happen with Carson Wentz's relationship with the fans? How are the fans going to handle this? The backup quarterback winning a Super Bowl, a legitimate MVP candidate, and a franchise quarterback on the bench due to injury. He's going to actually have to come back at some point, we all knew and hoped. And what kind of expectations was he going to have to live up to as Nick Foles went ahead and did his thing? And to a certain extent, Nick Foles aside, Carson Wentz has high expectations to live up to just because he is a franchise quarterback. But I feel like with Nick Foles' best games clearly in his rear view, and the fact that he played his best games in some of the playoff games and certainly the Super Bowl, and that the season hasn't gotten off to such a great start for him, that it actually works out really well for Carson Wentz to come back at this time, not just for the sake of the Eagles and this team this season as they go 1-1 into Week 3, but just for the whole time. It just feels like perfect timing for the fans to be able to acknowledge and say, Nick Foles, you did a great job. You probably played above your head to a certain extent. But now Carson Wentz can come back at a time where clearly it's been proven, with no disrespect to Nick Foles, because I love him and he will and deserves to be a legend in this town. But it just feels like the right time for Carson Wentz to come back based on how the first two games of the season have gone. Your thoughts? Group.
I never understood the whole. I think you brought this up before on a podcast where if Nick Foles does well and comes back, and is there going to be a controversy? No, there's never any controversy. We know what Nick Foles is. He got hot at the right time. He showed his true colors. They should have traded him. Now we get nothing for him because everyone knows he is what he is. He's not that good. He's a backup quarterback. They got hot at the right time. There's no controversy. Wentz is back. Wentz could sit out for 2 more weeks, and he's still going to be the quarterback. There was never any controversy. I was reading something earlier today about, I think it was an ESPN article. I don't even know who wrote it. And they were like, are we surprised that there's no controversy? The Super Bowl MVP is back on the bench, and no one cares. Yeah, because he's a backup quarterback. And Carson Wentz is like the next Tom Brady. So we're good. Let's go. That game last week was pathetic. The first game was kind of pathetic, too. We're back, and we're going back to the Super Bowl.
Basically, when it comes to Nick Foles, you get one or two versions. You get a really, really good Nick Foles. You get a really, really bad Nick Foles. There's no in between. You guys were fortunate enough to get a really, really good Nick Foles at the end of last season. He's reverted. Well, he is who he is, and so far he's been really, really bad Nick. It's nothing new. I was never really concerned about when Carson Wentz came back, would there be any sort of issues or people sitting there and take one way or the other. No, I mean, the talent gap is pretty significant between those two. Carson basically does that on a weekly basis. So at that point, you have to be pretty bleeping stupid to sit there and think there's any reason why you can even consider Foles for anything other than the role that he was meant to play, which is caretaker, and until the lead dog got back.
There's 27-2 Foles that everyone is in love with, and there was the playoff Foles from last year everyone is in love with. But then there's also the preseason and first 2 games of the season Foles that okay, we're lacking something, but we have a generational quarterback here. My kids will be married, and Carson will still be quarterback of the Eagles, which it's just huge to find that guy. And I know it's not popular to say Donovan McNabb was that guy, but I love Donovan. I thought Donovan was a generational quarterback, and he was. I mean, how many years did he give us and play for us, and we won for a lot of those years
with Todd Stinson and James Trash.
Right. Yeah.
Carry your mofos on his back.
With Todd Pinkston pulling up from contact versus
everybody.
Dude from Washington.
Dude from Washington.
Yeah, Sean Taylor. Yeah. But so I think we have a generational 10, 12-year quarterback here, and I'm not necessarily worried about the injury. Let's go.
Yeah, and to be clear, I wasn't necessarily assuming that there could be a quarterback controversy per se from a talent standpoint. It was just such just a unique situation that you'll never, I don't think, ever see again. I mean, just think about all the puzzle pieces that this thing involves. You had franchise quarterback go down after, I don't know, I'm not a mathematician, but how many games were left? The season was 75% to 80% over, right? And then your quarterback goes down. Clearly, you looked like a Super Bowl team at the time. Your backup quarterback, who, granted, is considered one of the, always kind of had a penchant for being a good, reliable backup quarterback, kind of prototypical backup quarterback kind of guy, was a guy that had previously played in town, was a starting quarterback in town, had a flash in the pan of pretty extreme measure with some of the, he set at least one Eagles record for touchdowns in a game, right? That never happens, right? For a town that never won a Super Bowl, and so it was the whole dynamic of you take all that what I just said, throw in the fact that it's a town literally starved for a Super Bowl, a town that has a rocky complex to begin with, and I just kind of, as the weeks were going on, as much as I was enjoying the ride and the underdog mentality and all that, I really was. And I'm not being cynical now, or do I think I was being cynical then? But I just couldn't help but think that, man, this is turning into a pretty tough situation for Carson Wentz to come back to, from just football standpoint. Forget about the injury, just the expectations that he would ultimately have to face. But granted, this is Philadelphia, and the expectations were going to be that anyway, so I'm not trying to be too overly dramatic. I just feel like the storyline, as we head into week 3 of this season, the way the first 2 weeks have played out, it's a really, really easy transition for Carson Wentz, as opposed to, let's say it was Ryan Chest Hair Fitzpatrick, throwing for 450 yards 2 weeks in a row, and you're trying to replace that. Ryan Fitzpatrick has become, even though they beat the Eagles last week, he's become one of my favorite humans in relatively short time.
I hate his guts, but
how do you hate his guts?
I'm on record. I don't care that a opposing team's quarterback is doing well. Not at all. Not for a second do I wish him well. not wishing injury upon him.
I was going to say,
but I wish him nothing but bad
Ryan
things.
Fitzpatrick.
And all bad
Look
things.
both ways when you cross the street.
I have been hyping up Ryan. For the past 4 years, I've been hyping up Ryan Fitzpatrick to all my friends. In fact, before the Eagles game, one of my best friends is an Eagles fan. We were on Gmail chat, and he's like, "Your boy Fitzpatrick." I'm like, all right. I don't think he's that good, but he's a pretty good quarterback. He's had a good career he's kind of like a Chad Henne, where like if you throw him in there, he's going to put up some numbers. But you don't want him as your starting quarterback week in and week out.
Right.
He's not a generational quarterback, as Jamie said.
Before last week, he was 2-10 after a win.
He's got more career touchdown passes than Troy Aikman.
So now he's 3-10 after a win.
That's a pretty crazy stat.
How you just described Fitzpatrick sort of reminds me of how someone else is being described, or at least how I just described somebody else. Very much Nick Foles, in fact, that really, really bad or really, really good. There is no in between. People like that don't last long in that position. Right now, he's sitting there and putting up numbers left and right, and he'll sit there and have another monster game this week because Pittsburgh doesn't play a lick of defense, and Tampa Bay's going to have to score because they play even less defense. Well, unless it's against the Eagles, but that's a whole different story. Sorry, fellas. But
you think they stick with him after suspension of Winston? Or?
If he keeps rolling, you got to stick with him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you got to go with the high hand. So yeah, he definitely stays on even when Winston comes back. Because the thing with Jameis is even when he comes back, he caused problems on the field, just throwing stupid passes and doing all the things that people with his amount of time in the league shouldn't be doing at this point. So at that point, yeah, you got to stick with Fitzpatrick.
Oh yeah, they got it. They got to roll with him, even if it wasn't for the fact that they're with Winston's off the field stuff, and that's a delicate situation to begin with. The way Fitzpatrick's playing right now, this is a relatively newly constructed team. Well, that might be going a little too far, but the defense is relatively newly constructed.
Weigh it out this way. You have a guy that's hot and winning. You have a habitual line stepper that wasn't winning.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Stevie Wonder can see what route to take there.
Every Uber driver in America wants Fitzpatrick keep playing.
This might be getting a little bit too ahead of myself, but if
I good air freshener for Uber, it fits magic air freshener.
Yes.
Fits.
Trademark that.
He's got to do something, because it's do we any of us? It's really early in the season, and Carlos, you brought up that he should probably chew up Pittsburgh this week to begin with, and they're going to be home on They're going to be home on Monday night. But I think I agree, and we even if you listen to our Survivor analysis the last 2 weeks, week number 1 we were saying be careful before you go against Tampa Bay. They played New Orleans week 1, right? And I remember having the conversation of before you jump on New Orleans, not that I don't think anyone at the table thought they would lose, but before you jump on New Orleans, Ryan Fitzpatrick has beaten good teams before, and then last week we said, Jamie and I were talking about how seeing 2 dominant weeks of him in a row is kind of what used to be an anomaly. But that's you feel like the honeymoon will be over it before it's a long honeymoon.
I sat there and gave you the fun fact about New Orleans, though. I mean, if they lost that game last week, this would have been the 5th consecutive year they would have started 0-2. Yeah. So at that point, you gotta be careful of things like that. If people were to sit there and make wagers with their heart, or pick like a Survivor team with their heart, sometimes that heart gets broken early. This is not a fun thing.
And we're going to run down the Survivor slate pretty soon here. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Tampa Bay starts maybe trying to sniff around and see who might want to be interested in a trade for Winston. I mean, that sounds a little bit kind of crazy, but at this point, I don't know if I wouldn't try that.
Jameis isn't that good. Like, he had one good year, and
he seemed to regress.
Yeah, he's not like a guy you're like, this is the guy.
Right.
I think Fitzpatrick is the bait, kind of like Foles is for us, where there's a quality backup or whoever. Yeah. I don't know Winston has much value at all. Actually,
like you see Andrew Luck get hurt and have a bad year, but you're like, he's a really good, one of the great quarterbacks in the league. Jameis is not at that level. Right,
and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to overvalue him. And again, I don't even know, like, if Buffalo's such a mess right now.
Buffalo's got.
I know they got who they hope is their quarterback. And again, so I'm not trying to make this out to be that I think Winston is would be able to start for a percentage of the team. I mean, I'm just trying to cycle through teams in my head that could maybe possibly entertain just the thought, and there's not many.
Well, Joe, those are all the same teams that could have gotten Teddy Bridgewater for a song.
Right. That doesn't mean that if I'm Tampa Bay, though, I don't just at least start sniffing around. That's all. I'm not saying he's got value, but if I'm Tampa Bay, maybe you start sniffing around.
I mean, if you like hearing the sound of crickets and phones hanging up, sure, go for it.
All right, so back to Carson Wentz. Let's just talk about purely from where we think how clean up an aisle, something wrong. I don't know.
I think
Someone just heard us mention Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to Carson Wentz. How do we feel just generally about how? What are our expectations for Carson Wentz here as we get into Game 3? To really focus on what this means for the Eagles at this point in their season. Look, after Week 1, we talked about how it looked like they had certainly a championship caliber defense. Thought they pulled out a real gritty win against Atlanta Week 1 at home. Not saying that Week 2 is. I'm not saying we have a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation here, but Week 2 didn't play out the way I thought it would at all. So it is somewhat of a little bit of a.
Week 1. Again, I still don't know how you guys happen to record the statue of Steve Sarkisian outside of Link right now. You sat there and gave me the last 2 games like on a silver platter.
Right, but the fact of the matter is they still won.
But people will say that Atlanta's a Super Bowl caliber team. So.
They are.
And it just, why?
Why?
A lot of football games are won and lost
they get
on
in the
one
red
play.
zone and they can go 15 plays.
They have talent.
They have talent all the way across the board. They have defense. Look. You saw the difference between when Shanahan was running that offense and what Sarkisian is doing. It's night and day. That defense shows up.
This is me shaking my head and rolling my eyes. No, they've had talent for years. They've done nothing. Atlanta's done nothing.
Atlanta's Super Bowl 2 years ago. Atlanta's have done nothing.
How are they doing it?
They should have won it.
They blew it.
They should have. They should have. Yeah. That's their story. They should be the Atlanta Falcons fight slogan. They should have.
And that's there's some truth to that. Maybe more than some truth. Maybe a lot of truth to that. But the fact of the matter is, it was still, I thought, a very gritty win for the Eagles to get Week 1 of the season.
I thought they were going to lose that game. Yeah, I agree. That's a great win.
And then you kind of set yourself up for a little bit of a trap game going into Tampa Bay. But with the rest and with the way Tampa Bay kind of, in theory, I thought they played better than they really are in Week 1. I didn't expect the Eagles to lose that game last week, especially the way in which they did lose the game. And there's a couple of ways you can look at that, from the fact that they kind of came out and got smacked in the mouth, literally immediately, to how the game started to somewhat turn into their favor, and that's actually what surprised me the most. They didn't win that game last week because the game started to spin in their favor a little bit. It started to become that type of game where we've become accustomed to them winning, and a game that championship teams do win, and then they ultimately did not win in the end, and that's kind of what makes me think it's a little bit of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of thing. And to that point, my question being, as Carson comes back here, as we come back home for a Week 3 game against Indianapolis, and a team that has their own, they're 3 weeks in now, or going to be 3 weeks into their franchise quarterback's return. Certainly not a championship caliber team. I don't think anyone at this table thinks that is the case, but a good team nonetheless, especially since they have a potentially elite quarterback in the league if he can actually start to stay healthy. What are your guys' thoughts as to how the Eagles fare this week against Indy through the lens of just from the team and just through the lens of Carson Wentz returning?
It was weird for me last week because up until the very end, I assumed the Eagles were going to come back and they would score late and win. And as a lifelong Eagles fan, that's not the normal mindset to have. You figure, you're down, you're done. And I always assumed they would come back and win it. So for me, I was actually surprised when they didn't win, which is great. That's a great mode to be in. That you believe your team will come back. So, 25 years of.
That's a good point.
Well, actually, let me be fair. 40 years of
25. Benjamin Button. You get younger during the podcast.
40 years of assuming, okay, you're down and you're going to lose late, and so I was shocked at the end. I cursed the TV, dog ran upstairs, wife was upstairs, but yeah.
That happens every week one way or another, right? You either yell at the TV because you're excited,
the dog
or you yell at the TV because you're ready to snap something in half.
Yeah, poor Cass hates football.
Yeah, so I didn't even really get to see the game. I had a really, 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 really good night the night before at a birthday party. So yeah, slept clear through those 1 o'clock games.
I want to hear more about this birthday party.
Yeah. Was it at a casino or
night
the other way?
It might have ended at the casino, but it started down at Citizens Bank Ballpark. So yeah, it was a fun night, and it enabled me to sleep really, really late the next day. By the time I woke up, it was about maybe 5 minutes into the game, and I'm looking at how the hell? Oh, Deshaun Jackson's still alive. Go figure. But there's just something that seems a little off about the defense, and I can't put my hand on it. I don't know if it's the front four not getting home.
I think it's the linebackers.
Okay, speak on it, because I mean, you know the team better than I do. But I mean, last year it just seems like, regardless of who they played, by the time you got to the fourth quarter, they were one sitting there and punishing offensive lines, and they're not doing that right now. And the talent hasn't changed. As a matter of fact, it quote unquote got better. So I said quote unquote. So at that point, that's what's sort of throwing me for a loop. What's going on with that front four? Or if you want to add the front seven, go for it. But I never thought the linebackers were good even last year. So
just a 10-second comment is Fletcher Cox is playing like a grown-ass man.
Okay.
Yeah, 2.5 sacks already.
He's killing people. I mean, he's throwing people around like the Hulk. So, but besides that, I don't know what's quite missing. Brandon Graham hasn't been there. A playmaker that much. Chris Long's been playing good too. So I think it's more linebacker problem than it's front four.
Well, you figure, I mean, not much of a pass rusher these days, but you figure you get Bennett in there, and you can sit there and move them all the way across the defensive line, and create pressure. And maybe I'm just missing out on something. I don't know.
All right. Well, what do we think? How does this matchup play into the Eagles' favor or out of their favor? Is this a gimme game? Is this a statement game for both squads? Like where do we think, where do the Colts really, where do they lie in the in the jungle of the NFL? Let's say, are they predator or are they prey? Like what do we think about this matchup? Curious to see what you guys think.
The Colts are better than I thought they were going to be. We can start there. As far as this particular matchup, it's two coaches that are familiar with each other's work, so that always makes it fun.
We got Frank Reich coming back.
Exactly.
Now, who does that benefit? I shouldn't say who does that benefit. I mean, who does that hurt first? Or however you want to answer that.
Benefits
Colts.
Benefits Colts.
I heard he was sitting with the defense during the week.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing for that one still is, at the end of the day, if the Eagles do what they're supposed to do, luck shouldn't be upright for much of the game, and that should be the end of that. The Colts defense isn't that great. You let Andy Dalton sit there and shred you up. That's a problem. So there's opportunities. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to sit there and get real healthy real quick against the Colts. I expect the Bears to handle business and win this one pretty easy.
What do we think in terms of just Carson Wentz versus Andrew Luck?
Carson Wentz.
Yeah, Carson Wentz is better, but I don't think you can compare. It's not quarterback versus quarterback. It's defense versus offense. I don't think you can make that.
No, I know, but I feel like it's going to be a pretty dominant storyline. Both guys being hurt last year.
You can name any quarterback but one, and I'll say Carson Wentz, which would be Rodgers, and that includes Tom Brady. Carson Wentz, Tom Brady. Yeah. Well, he's 40 and he throws. he throws complete. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a Tom Brady.
Bartender, get Gregor a
house.
beer. He needs a beer.
Yeah, but no. I mean, there's only one quarterback in the league that I would say is superior. It's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a monster, and Carson is the next monster in the league.
I'll tell you what,
Nathan Peterman?
Not my boy Drew.
Russell Wilson?
Not my boy Drew from New Orleans.
I'll tell you what though, I love Aaron Rodgers, but I'm getting a little sick of the fake oh my knee, wheelchair like Paul Pierce. Like, come on, dude, come on, it wasn't that bad. You played a whole second half of football. It wasn't that bad.
I gotta admit, when I read that he was.
He's got a good PR team, is what I'm saying.
When I read that he was a maybe for week 2, I was when he came back during halftime. So I kind of see where you're going there, but at the same time, I don't know if anyone, blabs more than your buddy. My Voldemort.
Thomas.
The guy who I shall not name. Someone get Harry Potter down here.
I'm over him.
They all blab.
I know.
All the non-mobile quarterbacks don't want to get hit.
The mobile quarterback that's in this game needs to be taken out of it, and I think he's about to be taken out of it. Now,
Good, finally.
he needs to go.
Hey, it's worth mentioning during this Football Thursday that we're watching the Jets currently shut out the Browns. Well, at least they can't. The Browns got a tie, so they can't lose every game. But
Once
If they
get Tyrod out of here, they might be good.
That's great. All right, so does anyone have any? Well, Carlos, I think you've expressed some concerns at least related to the Eagles' defense. But coming out of week 2, do we have any? Is there any level of concern at all with this team, or are we chalking that up as a straight up trap game, or what have you?
I think you guys will be fine. I think the issues are, you still don't have any wide receivers. That'll get better as the season goes on. For me, it's that backing, but that was the issue last season. It's just it got masked by a hellacious front 4, front 7, whatever number you want to throw for that unit. They covered up a lot last season on the back end.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Mike.
I think last season was an anomaly. I don't think defense played that bad. I mean, they didn't get a lot of pressure on Fitzpatrick. That was obvious. But they gave up a couple big plays. Mills got beat long a couple times. Yeah, first play of the game. It was big plays. It wasn't like they were getting gashed all day.
Okay, so it doesn't bother you at all that they're giving up big plays, 75
No,
yards?
it does.
No,
It bothers me, but it doesn't worry me.
That little son of a bitch loves playing against us so bad.
He does. He does. Look at his numbers against the Eagles.
That was the highlight of his life when he took that 75 yards first play of the game. I was in the car listening to it.
It is true. He had to be so jacked
And the
up.
injuries the Eagles, the injuries already. It's week 2. Peters goes out.
Running back,
running back, and they have no receivers.
Yeah. Well,
we signed one.
I want to. I don't want to make sure that no one smashes a pint glass over my head when I say this, but
And they're playing with a backup quarterback again.
the Eagles just added another Chip Kelly guy again. It's one more Chip Kelly guy for the.
Well, he's a Carson Wentz guy.
I know. I never had a problem
His
with
bestie.
Yeah, I think
his bestie's back in
I
town.
think it's I think all things considered, it's a good move. Actually, it brings up a really good question. Why the hell was everyone getting so crazy over Mr. Gordon?
I want to go.
Am I the only one?
I want to go.
I wouldn't have said no to him, but I don't know that.
If we could have got him for the deal
for a
New
5th
England
or
got
7th round pick, what they got for him.
Well, with hindsight, okay, but-
That's an almost zero. So how couldn't we have done better?
It's not like you're bringing him to the Steelers locker room, right? You're bringing him to the Malcolm Jenkins locker room, Chris Long locker room, where if he smokes some weed, they're like, "You're out, bro. You're done."
Maybe. And again, I'm not saying I would have been disappointed had they gotten him, and especially with hindsight, with what they, with what the scumbags gave up for him. gave up for him, I would have.
I mean, first of all,
I would have been fine with it.
Is weed not a big deal in the NFL? I mean, these guys are getting crushed for a living. Like, is weed that bad?
I think they call that a gateway drug. I think he's a few extra years past that gateway, to be quite honest.
He's in the mansion enjoying all of that stuff. He's like way past it.
You think he's doing more?
I would wager that he's doing more than just enjoying the plants of the earth.
You get him. All kidding aside, or all whatever. I hope as a human being he's doing okay. But you really want to bring him anywhere near Kensington?
No, my point is you're bringing him to the Super Bowl champion locker room that's very
right, and that's
Carson
fair.
Wentz runs. They go to Bible study together. This isn't like you're not going to the old school Bengals locker room where you're like beating people up. And,
Dallas Cowboys,
doing cocaine the night before the game.
Actually, I would really, as far as Bible study goes, it would have been really funny to see Josh Gordon go tailgate a Bible study.
One championship season does not make for a historically great locker room. I would still sit there and say his best bet, his safest bet, if he wants to sit there and get things done with whatever time he has left in the NFL, and it's dwindling quickly, would have been to go to the Pats. I think Cleveland probably acted on that too, with the fact that they couldn't do anything more with him, but they did right by him by sending him to a team where there's people there that are either going to either help him or B, show him the door and say this is it. If you can't sit there and make that one, that's basically where your career goes to die. Once you get picked up by the Patriots, you have to succeed or you fail. Once you fail, you tend to be out of the league. You don't come back from that.
But why trade him in conference? You would think if they had that consideration, they at least from a team standpoint, you want to get him out of the conference.
No. If your team had any chance in the hell of doing anything within conference, you want to get them out.
You're hurting Cleveland. I
don't think people wanted to bring him in for those reasons.
Our resident Cleveland.
I don't think they had many offers for him.
That too is a habitual line stepper. It's the same thing. James is going to find this out as time goes on too. Eventually, you run out that whole grace period due to talent. And Josh Gordon, when he's on, is top 3 wide receiver in the league, no problem. He sat there and did more in 12 games than some wide receivers have done in a entire career.
And that's my whole point. I'm glad you said that. It feels like, especially in football terminology or football lifelines, that feels like a long, long time ago.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But look
it's 2013. It was a long time ago.
But here's the problem.
League in rushing.
Look, we're Eagles fans, right? And we desperately need receivers.
Yeah.
Who's out there?
Right.
You want to sign Des Bryant, who's also a head case?
Not necessarily.
You want to bring Jeremy Maclin back? Like
Nah.
Brent Perryman, they're trying out. Like there's
Tio.
no one out there.
Back.
Get Eric Decker.
Watch Tio practice. He can still play.
Here's another name that I'm not.
Johnson tweeted at the Eagles. He wants in.
All right, you know what? Mike, I think it was actually you who mentioned this in text when we were, going through the week here and just doing our regular text messaging as a group.
Our show prep.
Devontae Parker, our show prep. What time are you going to be there? As soon as I can. All right, see you then.
See you at 11.
News at 11-ish. So Devontae Parker would be the type of guy where I'd think, like, okay, the dude hasn't lived up to his hype. A little bit of a different scenario with Josh Gordon. It's literally, and that's why I said I don't want to joke about it too much personally, but the guy has a personal problem here. But anyhow, moving right past that, Devontae Parker to me is the quintessential guy that maybe the Eagles could bring into the Super Bowl caliber team fold, not caliber, Super Bowl winning fold, and turn him into the player that he was supposed to be, injuries aside.
All right, so
that was the name floated around.
First and foremost, to sit there and even slightly parallel Devontae Parker and Josh Gordon is highly disrespectful. I've seen Josh Gordon sit there and put up 1,200 and whatever team amount of touchdowns with Brandon freaking Whedon as his quarterback.
I understand that.
You understand the scrubs he's played with over the years?
I hope he's not making a direct parallel. I think he's just saying of people out
the
there.
parallel that I'm making is the guy that could actually come in here and do a 360 or a 180.
I think the
The guy you can turn around. You're not going to turn around Josh Gordon. It's up to him or up to the chemicals.
I think the guy that you're referencing is also Mr. Glass, first and foremost. Secondly, he just might not be as good as advertised.
He might not. But I think that everything that we've been saying here about Josh Gordon, you'd find out about Devontae Parker. And again, I'm not big on this guy at all, but I just think that he is the perfect example of a guy with talent. He's not 110, and he's someone who could do it about face in this locker room.
What are you giving up for him?
The second shoe that I put on that day.
Fourth?
You guys have a fourth?
I believe we do this year.
Okay. Congratulations on getting some picks. I guess it doesn't matter because you guys got the chip.
Actually, we're chock full of picks this year. We got 11.
Okay.
We got 11 picks coming up.
Okay. I just have to check.
I don't know exactly. We have a fourth, but would a fourth do it?
If a Miami, no.
A fifth and a conditional.
No. Fourth is probably the best you'll get for him, the highest you'll get for him. But I think Miami. If I'm Miami, I would rather sit there and hold on to him and see what he can do throughout the duration of his rookie contract.
Howie has a long history of robbing Miami blind.
I know.
So either they're smart to it at this point, and it's going to be a struggle.
No.
Or you go get a.
You saw Al Davis with New England, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes people just go back to the well because the well just keeps on giving. So maybe Miami is dumb enough to sit there and do that.
Would you do a fourth and a sixth?
Yeah. I would personally ship him for the fourth.
I would do that all day long.
I'm just thinking if I'm Miami, it looks like Baker Mayfield's about to come in this game.
He better come in.
But,
embarrassing. He's the wide open receiver.
As Philly, I'd take a fourth and sixth.
Okay.
I give a fourth and sixth to get him.
I think you're overvaluing him at that point.
Fourth and a sixth for Parker?
I think it's overvalued.
I mean, we're desperate for receivers.
Split the difference to give him a fifth. That being said, for Miami, I would sit there. I mean, you basically have no talent outside of maybe Kenny Stills. So at that point, you have to take your chances and grind it out.
They'll draft a receiver, or we go in this coming year and draft a receiver. Yeah, I mean, until Jeffrey comes back, it's a mess. But I mean, Nelson's become a certified stud, by the way.
Yeah, Nelson's
been playing really well.
I'm not going to.
I already apologize to him. I'm not doing it again, damn it.
I don't want to overhype Jordan Matthews, but there is a chemistry there with him and Wentz.
Absolutely. I got no problem with Jordan Matthews.
It's fact.
Did you guys see what Jordan Matthews said about how he became a father?
Yeah, he's fucking all the time.
Nothing to do in Buffalo.
All right, I was actually hoping at least one of you didn't know, so I could share a little story.
Pretty much.
So for those listening who may not know, basically Jordan Matthews said that he was brought on by boredom to become a father. He was so bored in Buffalo, there was nothing to do but him and his lady friend, otherwise known as his wife, I guess.
He basically said if you have marriage problems, move to Buffalo. That should be their slogan.
So there's nothing else to do but you.
Well, we're gonna, on that note, we'll go to a break. Jordan,
that's why OJ was so successful.
Oh no. It's worth mentioning that Jordan Matthews is coming along with the family. That should make Carson Wentz happy. He's a family man now. But yeah, no, I'm absolutely.
If that's the case, then Willis McGahee is one hell of a family man.
Hey, Philip Rivers is a pretty good family man too.
Yes.
Guy's probably making a kid right now. What would that be, like number 13?
No, he doesn't have a football team yet. This would be number 10 if he knocks one out.
Okay. All right, so we're going to take a break. We're going to come back with we're going to go through the Week 3 slate to see what we like in Survivor mode. Jabronis live from London Grill in Philly. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Can't get enough of the Philly Sports Jabronis? Want to get together over tea and scones and share with us your life story? No thanks. We hate tea and scones. But we do have a website you can visit that offers all the jabroni action you can handle. Go to www.phillysportsjabronis. That's JABRONIS.com. Yahoo! The Philly Sports Jabronis are everywhere. We're online. We're streaming through the internet airwaves.
Can you hear me?
We're probably hiding in your bushes.
Hey, get out of there.
Oh, and we have social media pages. Find us on Facebook and on Twitter at Philly Sports Jabs. And for God's sakes, trim your bushes. It's like Jumanji in here. Who are your top 5 Philly outfielders of all time? What's your pick for the top 5 all-time Philadelphia sports jerseys? Who are the top 5 Philly athletes you'd never let babysit your kids? Let us know by visiting My Top 5 at phillysportsjabronis.com and let us know. Again, that's My Top 5, and the website is phillysportsjabronis.com.
All right, Jabronis are back. There's about a 45-second break. Just enough time to pull up the schedule for Week 3. We're going to go through some Survivor picks here. Actually, real quick, though, as I was listening to some of our internal promo, we do occasionally we go on the website and we list the My Top 5, My Top 5 this, My Top 5 that. I think the last one that we did was during the summer here. I listed personally my top 5 movies, baseball movies, or movies of summer, somewhere in that realm. But one of the things that we promo on the commercial is who are the top 5 Philly athletes. Now, when I ask you this, just if anyone pops to your mind, just one person, well, so be it. I'm not looking for a list of 5 or anything like that, but I always think that one of the funniest categories that we ever did was who are the top 5 Philadelphia athletes that you'd never let babysit your children.
Will actually gets that too.
Babysit your children.
Pat Burrell? Really? You just think he'd be a bad babysitter? Why, he'd drink with them or not tip them?
He seems a little filthy.
He's recovering now.
Okay.
Which Bernie Front? Playing career or now?
All right, anyone that comes to mind like today? Would anyone today?
Iverson would be terrible. He dropped the baby.
He's got a pretty good amount of kids though. I think they're all still, in school. Okay, so the Week 3 Survivor slate. So before we go down the group, the actual list here,
Pete Rose.
Pete Rose.
He put away.
I wouldn't have no problem with Pete Rose. I mean, as long as he's giving them, some good gambling tips.
You got a haircut like that. You're trouble.
He's got a haircut like a kid. They probably pretty good friends.
That's trouble.
He can't. Oh wait. Old Pete Rose or new Pete Rose? Old Pete Rose had the bowl cut. Look like someone put a spaghetti ball over his head. Just cut around it. Okay, so before we get to the actually running down the list here, a couple things that the manifesto tells us to do at Week 3 in the season is, officially you don't want to just chase a loser, right? Not only is it liable to potentially bite you in the butt, it really doesn't show any creativity or any thought, right?
I have a funny feeling we're going to sit there and buck that trend this week.
Absolutely, I am. It's very astute. Very astute comment there. I am actually going to throw a butt out there this week. And not only that, not only going to throw a butt out there, it's actually the first game on the schedule here that I pulled up. And right now, as we sit here on Thursday, again, we're live at the London Grill. Love it here. We're going to be coming back here more often, as long as they don't lock the doors on us. Great staff here, great food, great beer selection, great location. Home of our Quizzo hijinks, and just a really fun spot to be at. So looking forward to more evenings here. And who knows, maybe days. Okay. First game on the schedule here is a game that I like as we sit here on Thursday, this Football Thursday for the Jabronis. The Vikings are hosting the Buffalo Bills. And right now where I sit, this is a pretty enticing game to take in Survivor if you haven't taken the Vikings already.
Enticing my ass. If you have the Vikings, take them. Call it a day. Don't even think about anything else. Don't try to get cute.
Well, we got like 15 other games we got to talk about.
Yeah. Bump those other games. If you have the Vikings, you take them. Call it a day.
That's my pick. I'm already locked in Minnesota.
I'm out of my survivor pool, but why would you even flinch on
Jamie,
that?
I put in the Vikings as my pick about 5 minutes into that Chargers game.
And I think
I have a funny feeling I'm going to put Green Bay into my pool for next week about 5 minutes into that Vikings game.
I think the Vikings are way overrated as a football team, but the Bills might be the worst team in football.
And the Vikings coming off of a tie is a loss to them.
We have a Baker Mayfield sighting.
Yeah,
It's here.
First down.
Oh, and speaking of another generalization I meant to make before we went down the schedule here is we're almost in total agreement that we're not even counting the Thursday games in Survivor for the most part. So clearly tonight's game was not a suggestion, even though right now looks good for the Jets.
Normally, if you're doing a Thursday night game for Survivor, you take the home team and call it a day.
As we get later into the season, there may be suggestions for Thursday night if a team's coming off of a bye or a team is playing a team that's headed into a bye. But generally speaking, as we've said, picking the Thursday night game for your Survivor is generally not a good idea. I just wanted to make note of that. So with this Vikings game, I absolutely love it right now, and I'm sure I'm going to love it for the next couple days. I'm sure that I will take it.
I hope I lose.
I'm sure that I will take it in one of my leagues.
I'm thinking home field playoffs. So I'll honestly give up $25 to have Buffalo knock them off. It's not going to happen.
The main point to make about this game, in fact, is actually for those who would not take Minnesota just for the purposes of saving them, and that's a bad move. So if you're thinking about not taking the Vikings only because you want to save them, just throw that thought in the trash can because that is not what we suggest.
What's the one tried and true situation as far as Survivor pool picking goes? You can't pick next week if
you don't win this week.
There you go.
So have week 3 on the mind, people, not week 4. All right, we move to Texans hosting the Giants.
Hell no. Stay away at all costs. Neither one of those teams is worth even touching for anything ever in life right now. You have one team that can't score. You have another team that can't score. One team that can't block. Another team that has a coach that needs to be fired and maybe sent back to Penn State.
Oh, he's fine.
Don't touch him.
I was going to ask you to expand on that because not necessarily would I put this game into the bucket of I'm seriously looking at it, but I have a hard time seeing how the Texans don't win this game. I really do. So you've expressed yourself pretty well, but I still don't see how they can
Blaine
lose.
Gabbert and a team with both of their starting tackles out beat them last week. Pretty effing simple.
Last week, and then they're getting their tails whipped this week for it.
What?
They're getting browbeat to
When has Bill O'Brien browbeating the Texans done anything for them recently?
I'm just talking general football locker room stuff. Like
this ain't any given Sunday. There's no speech that's going to sit there and get them to the point where they're playing lights out.
All right, let's put it this way. Let's say
do it an inch at a time.
Let's say the Texans go 1-15 this year. This is probably the game they win, and I don't think they're going 1-15. Again, I'm not advocating to take this game, but I don't know. I don't see how the Texans lose this game. I just don't see it.
You do realize that I believe they do have the Bills on the schedule. They should have the Bills on the schedule if I remember correctly because they play the AFC East. So this is not their one game.
Nah, they're not going to go 1-15 anyhow.
But if it's the one game, it's the Bills.
Okay. Redskins hosting the Packers.
All right, so
now this is an avoidable game. This is a game no, Green Bay should win that game, right?
No.
They're coming off a tie too.
Here's the problem for that one.
Packers by 1 million. No line would make me bet against the Packers.
Me and someone else that enjoys doing a couple of things for entertainment had a discussion about this particular matchup. In particular, because it saved me from having to come back from 48 points to win the underdog sessions that we have for this entire season. There's a reason why Vegas is basically begging you to take Green Bay. That number started at 3, it's dropped to 2.5. They're doing everything under the sun to get you to bet on Green Bay. Something's rotten. Don't know what it is. Something's rotten.
Okay.
So it's A, stay away. B, if you have money, put it somewhere else besides this game.
Well, now if we throw the line, just not think about the line and just think of it truly through the Survivor lens. Do you see any way Green Bay just loses this game?
They're on the road. They're not the same on the road as they are elsewhere.
I hope so, but no.
Stay away.
Hope so, but no. No, Green Bay wins.
If you already took the Vikings and we're just going down the list, would you take Green Bay on the road or would you take Texans at home?
None of the above. It's only week 3.
I'm just talking about where we are in the schedule right now.
If I take a road, I'd go Green Bay. No, I'd go Green Bay.
Mike would go with Texans.
I would have to go Green Bay just because I trust Aaron Rodgers.
All right, moving along. Chiefs are hosting the 49ers.
Chiefs are going to crush in that game. Chiefs are probably the best team in the AFC until Andy Reid has to get into a playoff game, and they're going to lose.
Yeah, I mean, there's right now you can't debate that.
Are you actually flipping mine? Did you see what Jacksonville just did to the Patriots?
They still got Blake Bortles. Doesn't matter.
Andy has a quarterback. As long as Andy had a quarterback, he's going to win.
That Belichick's going to lose to Jaguars 2 times in a season? Not going to happen.
Andy wins. That quarterback is a stud.
Chiefs team is very good. Mahomes literally has a freaking.
There's it's the Chiefs and the Patriots. They're the only two good teams in that whole conference.
Would you
a monster.
But this is not no one's advocating Survivor for this, right?
I don't trust him at all. But that's not to go and sit there and say Jacksonville's a bad team. I'm sorry, or not at the same level as the Chiefs and the Patriots.
Jaguars borderline playoff team in the NFC.
Jags borderline playoff team?
Borderline playoff team.
AFC's tough.
Best team in the AFC.
Yeah.
You're smoking.
All right, so from a Survivor standpoint, the Chiefs. Does anyone advocate taking the Chiefs? If someone's got the Chiefs as an option this week, do you look at this game?
Hell no.
You think the Niners have a chance in this game?
Anyone has a chance if they'll play defense. The better defense in this game is San Fran. I feel like they can.
San Fran has no quarterback.
All right, hot takes over here. I feel like he can sit there and scheme and get points on the Chiefs. It's been proven on a weekly basis so far. So it's a game I want to touch. There's got to be more appealing games out there, and I mean, if you don't have Minnesota.
Yeah. No, I mean it puts you in a little bit of a quandary because you're still early in the season. If you haven't used the Chiefs yet, normally you want to put your eggs in the better team's basket.
No, it's no quandary at all. You save the Chiefs when they play the Raiders. They own them.
We don't save though, right?
What's that?
We don't save. No saving.
Why would you play the Chiefs now anyway? Are they such a good team that you have to sit there and use them
I don't
guarantee win?
No, I don't think you have to. I'm just trying to say, trying to see like where the pros and the cons are, and possibly thinking about them because it's a game that. Yeah, I probably wouldn't touch this game either, but not because
the pros are is week 3. You don't have to consider touching them yet. That's a pro. That's a really, really easy and straightforward and powerful pro. The con is if Mahomes has a bad game.
That's the one con I can think of is along those lines. Is maybe the bubble burst. It's a home game though. If this game was in San Fran, I'd think no way to look at this game. This is a game I think you can look at. I'm
not saying it will happen. I'm just sitting there saying there's more appetizing games on the menu, I believe.
Not the next one. Dolphins are hosting the Raiders.
All right.
Mess.
All right. So
that game sounds like a mess to me. I don't know which way to go.
I wouldn't touch it for Survivor.
Yeah.
Raiders.
All right. So 2 things. One, I'm sort of going against myself here with this one. Because part of the manifesto is something I've been saying for a while, and it's been pretty accurate. Miami in September, hard to win there. Really, really blipping hard to win there. That being said, for the little underdog thing I've gone with Rob this week, I took the Raiders. And the reason why I did that is because I think Miami might be the worst 2-0 team, outside of them or the Broncos, that is out there. They got a Jets team off of a letdown, and they had Tennessee with Mariota finding his way out of that game, I believe, at some point, right? Or was it afterwards? So I feel like Miami may be a little fugazi. We'll find out.
Is it game 1 or 4?
1.
Yeah, we're still in the 1 p.m.
Well, that might sway me a little bit to go with the Falcons, but
No, you mean the Dolphins?
yeah. You know, West Coast coming east. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of a messy game though. Like it's there's reasons that I feel like Jamie, you make a good point. Carlos made good points there. To me, that's a game you stay away with Survivor when you can really look at it in a 50-50 split. Definitely don't advocate that game. This one's going to be interesting, and there may be some folks who took the Eagles last week and are now out. But the Eagles coming back home to Indy. Obviously, we talked about this in the first segment. I think this is going to be a pretty popular pick this week. It's probably one that I'm going to avoid, but I don't know. I don't know if I have a real good reason for that, because I don't necessarily think that Carson Wentz is going to come back and struggle, but it just feels like a game that I want to avoid. And when it comes to Survivor, that's usually, if I get a pretty kind of cold shoulder kind of feel for a game, I just move on. This one kind of feels like that.
I will too, and then as a 40-year-old Eagles fan, 40-year Eagle fan, not 40 years old.
How damn old are you? You got like 9 ages.
I expect that to happen, where Carson comes back and everyone's pumped up for 15 seconds, and then we go out and lose the game. So I won't touch it. I do think the Eagles will win the game, but if I was betting money on it, I'll pass.
I think the Eagles winning cover. That being said, I've been wrong before on that entire thing.
Line 6.
That being said, it's two coaches that are familiar with each other, so that comes into play there. And again, Carson might have to work on some rust. So while it's a game that I wouldn't sit there and really fear the Eagles losing, it's not the first game or anywhere close.
It's not in Tier 1. It's not in Tier 1.
Right. That's it.
Eagles win easy, but don't touch it for Survivor.
So you're like, you take you always have like comments where it's like you say a team will be, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you say a team will win easy, but don't put them on Survivor. It always boggles my mind how you how you do that. you feel like so good about it.
For the Eagles, I picked them. I bought back into Survivor last week, and I picked them.
You had the Saints. You had the Saints. You had the Saints week
to beat the.
You had the Saints week 1.
Yeah, the Saints
or Detroit.
And the Saints.
I wasn't touching the Saints again. I was done with the Saints.
Yeah.
So you had the Eagles last week.
But I found in my life that you don't bet on the team that you cheer for.
Right.
Just don't do it.
Right.
Yeah. It just hurts. Yeah. I totally agree.
Is there any way the Titans go into Jacksonville and win that game? Because that's on the list. Jacksonville coming off of that New England game.
No.
Let's see if Mariota's actually playing before we answer that question.
Do you really think that makes a major difference, though?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I still think the Titans can win that game without.
It's a winnable game. They actually have a good history against the Jaguars.
We're talking about a divisional thing, right? We're talking about a divisional thing.
You don't want to touch that game in a Survivor.
That defense is not giving up points. I don't care who's quarterback.
That defense was as good last year, and the Titans found a way to win that game in Jacksonville.
I look forward to that in a couple
Right.
weeks in London.
Yeah, and there's no way you're
It's going
taking.
to be like a 13-10 game.
Jacksonville.
It's going to be ugly.
There's zero chance of taking the Titans in that game, because even if you think that Jacksonville is going to come in flat because of last week, you're still not going to go in and take the Titans.
Well,
the question is,
for that one is, do you trust Jacksonville in that game?
right? That's
that
the
one
key.
is no.
And you don't trust them enough. Okay.
Titans stink.
Panthers are hosting the Bengals.
Don't touch.
Not touching that game.
Flip a coin.
I feel I'm not gonna play this game. I don't think, but I like the Panthers in this one. I'm talking about from a survivor standpoint. I like the Panthers in this one a little bit. This is a game that I would say is kind of like simmering for me a little bit because I don't think the Bengals are as Carlos. You had a comment about the Dolphins that's 2-0. The Bengals at 2-0. I'm not necessarily thinking they're a bad team, but I don't know that I believe enough in them to go into Carolina having lost to Atlanta last week. I like Carolina a little bit in this one as a survivor pick, as a sneaky survivor pick, not for purposes of stashing teams. I would not advocate for stashing a team to take Carolina, but if you really do invest yourself in survivor and you try to read the tea leaves a little bit, I like this game as a sneaky pick. Carolina, I do.
Too much of a risk. Carolina's banged up. You leave it alone.
I like Carolina to win the game outright.
Agreed.
I'm not touching it.
I think Carolina's on downward spiral. So.
Really?
I do. Yeah. I think the offense is overrated. I think the quarterback's overrated. So let's see.
Ravens hosting Denver. We are actually
there. It is.
We're still in the 1:00 game.
That's attractive. Denver is the other 2-0 team that I think is fraudulent. And
now, fraudulent. Let me stop you there for a second. Fraudulent, meaning that they have no business. Let's say being in the playoff conversation, or just
they're not in a playoff conversation. Okay. They should have lost again to Oakland.
Do you think they're going to end up under 500?
No.
What's your gut tell you?
They're going to be right around there.
Okay.
They're
not a terrible team. They're just not. They're in
that 7-9, 9-7 pantheon.
Okay.
That being said, for this particular endeavor, Baltimore stomps them out.
They got to travel, right? So we're talking about a 1:00 game. Denver's got to do the travel thing. Baltimore's coming off of long rest. They got their butts whipped last Thursday night.
And Baltimore at home is a really good play most of the time.
A lot of people took Baltimore there already. If they at least they listened to us.
Correct.
So not necessarily. Yeah, that's basically a game not to touch because there's no reason to think that Denver should go in there and win. And a lot of people did take Baltimore already in week 1.
And there's no reason to think that you have both Baltimore and Minnesota unavailable to you in week 3. If you do, then you definitely did something wrong in your survivor pool.
This game I'm going to mention now is basically poison as far as it comes to survivor. This is really going to be the first game, really truly the first game that jumps out to me as a total non-touch on both sides. But it should be a fun game in real life, though. The Falcons are hosting the Saints.
I want to watch that game.
Yeah, I want to watch it. To me, again, I can't say it any. Well, actually, the Broncos-Ravens game is pretty much totally non-touch. I'm not touching this game at all.
Saints win,
Saints,
but I'm not going.
You think Saints are going to win?
Within 100 yards of it.
Yep. It's in Atlanta. I take the Falcons.
Yeah. I think Falcons win this game, but I wouldn't touch it at all. I think both teams are overrated. I think both teams are overrated.
Saints have not looked good the first 2 weeks.
Neither of the Falcons.
We got Mattia's home opener.
Started, because he was in Philly, and then last week they were in Carolina. Right?
Yeah, the Falcons win this game.
Yeah, I think so too, but I wouldn't play this game.
My boy Drew takes it. Book it.
Rams hosting the Chargers.
Ooh. If you want to sit there and play this game, I wouldn't. But if you take the Rams, they might be the best team in football right now.
I would agree to that.
So yeah,
I wouldn't touch this game.
If that's the way you lean, that's the way you lean. That being said, it's not a game to touch.
Not at all.
I take the Chargers, but I'm not taking it on any survivor.
Oh, you think the Chargers are going to win this one?
They're going to win, but I don't take it in any.
Well, Rivers is my fantasy quarterback, so I hope you're right. But I'm not touching that game. Nah, let it go.
Cardinals are hosting the Bears. We're in the 4:00 slate. Bears got to travel to Cardinals. The Cardinals, they stink. They might
Cardinals
somehow.
and the Bills are the two worst.
I was going to say they might somehow be worse than the Bills.
The Bears should win this game, and I think they do win this game. I think this game is closer than people will think, though.
Well, yeah, the Bears got to travel. They played Monday night,
I agree
right?
with that.
They're coming. They're going to be short rest. They got to do the time zone thing.
What's
The Bears' offense.
I don't know the
step
line.
up.
6.
The Bears' offense has to. They have to step up and look better.
I'll take
That
that.
defense is ridiculous.
Defense is great.
And Trubisky
trust
has
Trubisky?
to. Not yet. No, not yet. I
He'll
don't.
still be driving down the Rossburg drum.
Trubisky. They're like, how much can you
I
really
watched that
expect out
game
of
the other
him?
night. He made some bad throws in that game.
I know. I mean, he's still pretty wet behind. He's still pretty wet behind the ears. That defense is going to carry that team this year. Clearly, that Cardinals team stinks out loud.
Yeah. They're awful. Sammy Sleeves is. Sammy Sleeves' agent might be the smartest man on earth to get that man that many contracts that he did.
Yeah, you think
And
is
the
it the
amount of
same
money
agent the
he
whole
did.
time?
I don't know, but if it is,
Sam Bradford.
they might put him in the Hall of Fame.
Robbing people.
Sam Bradford. There's a very good chance that Sam Bradford is in fact. There's a good chance that Sam Bradford is in fact Kaiser Sose. I'm running out of reasons. I like the guy,
See him walking out of the
but
huddle
I'm
with his
just
foot.
like I don't.
Sam Bradford's stats last week: 17 completions for 90 yards.
What's his on base percentage?
And what's he making a year? About 25, 20, low 20s?
I think he's good
Enough
for
for us to
another,
have one hell of a dinner.
good for another $20 million contract somewhere.
I'm about to announce a game I like for the home team. It's going to be kind of a messy game, but I'm a little intrigued by the Seattle Seahawks hosting Dallas next week.
Yeah, I think Seattle wins that.
This feels like this is.
Go
I
ahead.
don't know if I want to touch it in Survivor, but I think Seattle wins that game.
I think Seattle wins the game. It's at home. They get some people back. That being said, Russell Wilson's running for his life, and Dallas does apply pressure. So with that, it's another one of those games that's going to be a miserable game to watch. Seattle should win it. I think Seattle does win it, but I wouldn't touch it.
This shapes up as a solid. This is kind of like a tier 2 game for me. If you somehow burn through Minnesota, if you burn through Baltimore, right? There very well could be people who burn through Minnesota and Baltimore, right? There could be people who burn.
No one in the right bleeping mind has burned through Baltimore and Minnesota, unless you try to.
Well, no,
keep
you're right,
safe.
because Baltimore got their butts kicked last week. So you could say you could have taken Minnesota week 1.
Yeah, that would have got you in.
I think
Right,
you
but
get
Baltimore you would have lost. Right.
When you get to two bad teams, and part of being a good gambler is to adjust to when teams are bad, like Seattle is now, where for years they weren't. You look at two bad teams, you always take the home team. So I'm going.
This is the quintessential game for me. If someone tells me that they're taking Seattle this week in Survivor, I'm not going to really bat an eye, unless they tell me it's because they're saving somebody. If you're taking Seattle only to save somebody, meaning if you're trying to save, let's say the Vikings or anyone else, if you're trying to save somebody, I'm going to tell you no. But if you're taking Seattle just because you think it's a good play, I would have a real tough time arguing that. I feel like that's definitely at least a tier 2 pick for me. I'm not dismissing that game at all. All right, now we're into Sunday night and Monday night, and probably going to be two pretty much avoidable games, but let's go through it anyway. The Lions host New England on Sunday night.
No, I take New England that one. That's easy.
You would take them in Survivor?
Belichick off of the L is normally FU mode, lights out. Yeah. Have you seen the Detroit Lions play this year, sir?
Yeah, they've been probably the most disappointing team all year.
Have you seen?
Well, they've been the most disappointing for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
The Lions, so I'm definitely going New England there.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I won't play it because it's a home. It's away versus home, but.
All right, so
The Lions
no, but
screwed me
let's
more
hang,
than-
Jamie. Let's hang on that point for a second. are you taking who here is taking New England over Minnesota? Like, well, let's really break it down for people.
Nope.
What's the better play, New England or Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Minnesota's still the better play.
Or Kansas City.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's look at those three teams: Minnesota, Kansas City, and New England. What do you guys think? How would you rank them in terms of who to take?
Well, first and foremost, Minnesota. Secondly, I would say they throw Baltimore in before throw Kansas City in there.
If people have Baltimore,
If people have Minnesota.
right? I think most people are going to have Minnesota.
Minnesota's
I think
home, right?
Minnesota is home. Yeah. I think most people are going to have Minnesota. I do think a lot of people use Baltimore in Week 1. But anyhow, even if you just wipe all that away, if I go Chiefs, Patriots, Minnesota.
Okay, the order I'm taking is Minnesota, New England, and Kansas City.
Minnesota, yeah.
I agree. I like Minnesota first and foremost here. I tell you, I'm still liking Seattle. Okay. And our last game is Chest Hair Fitzpatrick hosting the Steelers on Monday night.
You don't touch that game for your survivor pool. You just sit there and bet the over.
The Steelers still have talent. They're going to win. I think they're going to figure it out. I'm not sure.
I think so. No. Here's the thing. And again, not advocating. I've used the word advocating a lot tonight, and I don't know why.
How do the Bills when they have
You're right, but the problem I have is it seems like it's a locker room that's being lost right now by
But
Tom.
it's only 2 weeks, so they can still recover.
And it's kind of
Good.
And it's not like Tampa Bay's a really good team.
That's the thing.
They're hot right now. They're not. Are they going to make the playoffs? They're not making the playoffs.
Would you rather have hot or would you rather have making the playoffs at this point? I mean, it's not a game to touch anyway, but you have a Pittsburgh team that doesn't stop anybody. Roethlisberger is a different quarterback at home than he is on the road. This is not a game where it's outside of realm of possibility that Tampa Bay can win it, is what I'm trying to say.
And that's why I would avoid it because
definitely avoid it.
I don't know what's going to happen. If Pittsburgh loses this week, they're off the rails. It's not going to be that Tampa Bay is great. It's going to be Pittsburgh's off the rails.
Circling the drain a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
I think Tampa Bay
I'll
probably
avoid it.
wins, but it's like
Really?
I think Tampa Bay probably wins the game, but it's like 50-50. It's a 50-50 shot versus like I'm 90% sure that Vikings are going to win that game.
Right.
90.
Right. I mean, there's
95.
Look, unless somebody gets struck by lightning.
Wait, who is that somebody? No, I mean, I'm on board with what Mike's saying here except for the fact I think Pittsburgh wins this game. If there's any play in this game from survivor purposes, it's Pittsburgh. Now, I'm not touching this game, but if there's a play, I think the play is Pittsburgh because it's a perfect storm of a team that's desperate and has Le'Veon Bell aside, and that thing is hanging over their heads like a Charlie Brown friggin' rain cloud. But that aside, there's still a lot of talent on that roster. There's a lot of experienced talent on that roster, and you parlay that with Tampa Bay to steal a quote from Jamie, smelling themselves hardcore right now. The fact that they're home, the only thing that would give me a little bit of pause is that Tampa Bay is in fact at home. But I like the Steelers in this game.
So you
Pretty big.
So you don't think Tampa Bay was probably smelling themselves after they sat there and took the same step?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was saying the same thing last week a little bit.
And
But now they're really smelling themselves.
And they did what?
And now they probably went out, drank, did a couple lines of coke, did a whole lot of stuff.
Well,
They got an extra day too. They're looking at that extra day. They're going like, oh, we can party hard.
or maybe Tampa Bay with a quarterback that's a little bit consistent is better than I thought they were going to be.
I'm not being disrespectful to them. At least I don't think I am. But if there's any play in this game, to me, it's playing Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you would play Pittsburgh because they're the team that you should trust.
Right.
That being said, I think they're hella overvalued at this point.
Oh, I do too. I mean, I do think that there's definitely a little bit of an overvalue, but I like the Steelers somewhat in this game. I'm not taking them. I'm not taking them over the Vikings. Heck, I don't even know if I'm taking them over the Seahawks. But it's I can't help but think that this is somewhat enticing. I mean, I don't see the Steelers losing this game. I'm putting it in as a tier 2 game for myself. It's definitely worth considering.
I can see the Steelers losing this game.
Well, if someone has to lose.
I understand this one, but normally I put it like this: I can't see the Vikings losing that game.
I'm putting this in tier 2. Vikings are in tier 1. I'll tell you what, though, to be honest with you, had the Vikings won last week, I'd feel a little less unsure. Not saying I wouldn't take them, because it's hard to say that because we were here where we are. But had the Vikings won last week, this would be a little trappish to me.
Okay, so you, Pookie, and Bobby Brown can all get off the pipe at some point in life, please, because you must be out your mind.
No, I'm telling you.
If you think that there's any chance Buffalo had here, whether the Vikings won by $1 million or lost the game, whatever.
All I'm saying is I would be a little less quicker to pull the trigger. I've already told you it was as we sit right now, it's my pick. As long as Minnesota doesn't fall into the ocean, I'm probably going to take it. And there's no ocean around there, right?
Correct.
10,000 lakes, though.
Yeah, Minnesota.
All right, so we're going to cut to a break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to go through. Rob's going to grace us with his games not to bet. It's probably going to send us packing. So, any parting thoughts that you guys want to share before we literally let Rob take us to the swan song?
Yeah, I got one. John freaking Gruden. Get your team to play more than one half of a bleeping football game. Love your boy, Los.
Hey, Phillies, let's win 6 out of 7 against the Braves, get back into it, and have a good late September weekend.
They were down 2-1 when I got here.
Are they?
3-3, right? 3-3 last I saw. Yeah, Eagles fans don't panic. The MVP is back, and we're fine. And 6 training camp starts tomorrow. Let's go!
Trust the process. The brand is strong.
That Colts shot looks pretty good.
Trust the process is good, too, as always.
All right, I'll go out with the, actually, Braves are up 4-3 in the bottom of the 7th. I'm sorry to reveal that. I want to thank London Grill for having us again. We love it here. We'll be back. Jabronis signing off. Actually, we'll be signing off after you hear Rob's games not to bet.
Justin Timberlake.
We'll talk to you next week on another Football Thursday.
I'm getting sexy back.
Okay, welcome to Week 3's Games Not to Bet segment for the NFL season. As I promised last week, we'll take a look back first at the games we chose for Week 2. We had Cleveland getting 9.5 points in New Orleans. What did we learn there? We learned that Cleveland can keep games close. We don't know if they can win them yet. Maybe we'll find out tonight when they take on the Jets. We also learned that taking the Chargers -7 in Buffalo probably would have been just fine. Buffalo is just that bad this year. So we're learning a little more every week, and that brings us to Week 3. And the most interesting thing I found here is I can't really pick out one game or two games, honestly, that I would completely keep people off of. I can understand taking a side in just about every one of these games. But we call the segment Games Not to Bet, so I'm going to give you a couple of games not to bet. And I'm going to start with the Bears and the Cardinals in Arizona on Sunday afternoon. Chicago started out at 6.5-point favorites. They're down to 5.5 now, which makes me think Arizona is the side that a lot of people are going to. Doesn't mean they're the right side, though. Just means they're the popular side. Can you back Arizona yet? Has Arizona given you anything to believe they're worth your money? Hell no. That said, Chicago making that trip out west. Second straight week for them, making a tough trip like this. I don't know that I'd want to back them either. Chicago is in a tough spot here. We'll see. We'll see what happens, but I would stay away from this game completely, Chicago and Arizona. The second one, I'm going to go with Sunday Night Football only because the line is a little fishy. New England, 6.5-point favorites at Detroit. So, this looks easy, right? The Patriots off a loss against a former Belichick assistant who hasn't won a game yet as a head coach. In primetime, all you're asking the Patriots to do is win by a touchdown and an extra point. That seems really easy, doesn't it? Right. It seems too easy. That's the problem. That's what we look for in these kinds of games. At the same time, does that mean you want to put your money on Detroit? Much like Arizona, what have they shown you to make you believe they're worth putting your money on them? So, Arizona against Chicago. Chicago at Arizona, I should say. Stay away from that one. Stay away from New England at Detroit. Of course, New England at Detroit is the Sunday night game. I completely understand if you need to make a bet on this game. It's just one I wouldn't recommend. Looking at other things this weekend, there are a lot of situations that are setting up for nice wagers for people. Not sure about the Eagles game in particular. If that went to 7 or 7.5, the Colts would almost seem like a good play there. I do expect the Eagles will win. I just don't know by how much they will win. A lot of other good-looking games on this. Minnesota, a 16.5-point favorite at home against Buffalo, and I still think I'd take the Vikings. I think it's that bad in Buffalo right now. But unlike Vontae Davis, we didn't cut out halfway through this segment. You've made it all the way. Good luck in Week 3.